Hello, and thank you for viewing this video presentation as part of the third public open house for the City of Cornwall Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw Review. My name is Anita Sott, and I am part of the WSP consulting team assisting the City in completing the review and preparing a new comprehensive zoning bylaw. I will be narrating this video presentation together with my colleague, Casper Koblau. As you know, many of the city's facilities are closed and public meetings are being held virtually due to COVID-19. In place of an in-person event, we have prepared this video presentation to provide an overview of the new first draft zoning bylaw. To date, one in-person public open house was held in February 2020 to introduce the project, and a second online public open house was held in May 2020 to present a discussion paper on various zoning issues to be addressed through the zoning bylaw review. A zoning strategy report was also prepared and presented to the city's Planning Advisory Committee in September 2020. The zoning strategy report contains recommendations that form the foundation for the first draft zoning bylaw. All of these previous reports and open house materials are available for review on the city's website at www.cornwall.ca/zoning review. This video presentation walks through the key changes in the first draft zoning bylaw. Once you have finished watching or listening to the video, please visit the city's website to review the first draft zoning bylaw document and zoning map, as well as the public open house display boards. On the city's website, you will also find a link to an online survey and contact information to submit questions or comments to the city about this project. The survey will close on Sunday, February 14th, 2021 at 11:59 p.m. This slide provides an overview of this video presentation. We will provide an overview of the first draft zoning bylaw document, including the general structure and various sections, as well as the zoning map. We will also walk through how to navigate the document and map to find zoning information for your property. We will then discuss key changes made in the first draft zoning bylaw and share where to find information on how key zoning issues previously presented in the second online public open house in May 2020 have been addressed. Lastly, we will explain how you can share your input with the city on the first draft zoning bylaw, what the immediate next steps are in the process, and how you can stay involved. For introductory information on the comprehensive zoning bylaw review process and why the city is reviewing their existing zoning bylaw, which dates back to 1969, please visit the city's website. The first draft zoning bylaw has been prepared based on the recommendations in the zoning strategy report, which was presented to the city's Planning Advisory Committee in September 2020. The first draft zoning bylaw document is made up of 5 sections. Section 1, Administration and Interpretation, describes how the zoning bylaw is implemented by the city. It contains information on how the zoning bylaw provisions and zoning map should be read and interpreted. Section 2, Definitions, contains definitions for permitted uses and other key terms used in the zoning bylaw. It also includes illustrations to help clarify certain definitions. Section 3, General Provisions, contains provisions that may apply to all properties in all zones, depending on the proposed development. For example, these include provisions related to accessory buildings, as well as parking requirements. Sections 4 to 29 contain provisions for the individual zones that make up the city. There are 26 different zones organized by land use types, example, residential, commercial, employment, and open space. Each zone has its own section in the zoning bylaw, which establishes permitted uses, zone standards such as minimum lot area, setbacks, and maximum building heights, additional provisions such as special provisions for specific uses in that zone, and exception zones, which contain provisions that only apply to specific properties. Section 5 of the zoning bylaw introduces the zoning map, which illustrates the proposed zoning for all properties in the city. Zone boundaries are outlined in pink on the zoning map. The legend lists the zone acronyms used on the map. For example, Res 10 means the residential 10 zone, and CG means the general commercial zone. Once the zoning bylaw and zoning map have been finalized and approved by Council at the end of the zoning bylaw review process, the zoning map will be converted to an interactive map on the city's website and will replace the mapping which is currently available. The next slides explain how to use the new zoning bylaw to determine what zoning provisions apply to your property. Step 1 is to find your property on the first draft zoning map and use the legend to determine what zone your property is in. Step 2 is to go to the zone section in the zoning bylaw to find what provisions apply to your property and to potential development. For example, if the zoning map shows your property is located in the residential 20 zone, this means you should go to section 6 of the zoning bylaw document to find the provisions which apply to all properties zoned residential 20. These provisions will tell you what uses are permitted and what the zone standards are for development, such as minimum lot area, required building setbacks, and maximum building height. Step 3 is to use Section 2 definitions in the zoning bylaw document to help clarify the meaning of a permitted use listed in your zone or other zoning terms if you are not sure what they mean. For example, if your zone requires a certain side yard setback, you can consult the definitions to understand what a side yard is and where it is located on your lot in relation to a building and other required yards. Step 4 is to review the entirety of Section 3 general provisions in the zoning bylaw document to determine if any other provisions apply to your proposed development. For example, you may need to confirm how many parking spaces must be provided, or where an accessory structure, like a shed or a detached garage, is permitted on your lot. The next few slides describe key changes that have been made in the first draft zoning bylaw. As the city's current zoning bylaw dates back to 1969, there have been many amendments made over the years which have resulted in the need for better organization of the document and zoning provisions. The first draft zoning bylaw includes a number of new organizational features to help users navigate the document. As shown in number 1, the sections of the zoning bylaw are color-coded with alternating blue and green headers and identify the section title in the top right corner. Each zone also includes a zone icon. As shown in number 2, each zone section begins with a preamble, which explains the intent of the zone and its relationship to the city's official plan land use designations, and what types of development are generally permitted. As shown in number 3, permitted uses have been organized in a bulleted list in alphabetical order. The terms used to describe permitted uses have been simplified. As shown in number 4, zone standards for development have been organized in tables and metric measurements are used consistently. Lastly, as shown in number 5, site-specific exceptions, which only apply to specific properties, are organized in a section under each zone. Each site-specific exception is also numbered on the zoning map. It is important to note that site-specific exceptions will be added to the document as part of the second draft zoning bylaw.
Section 2, Definitions in the Zoning Bylaw document, has been revised to better explain the different terms used in the zoning bylaw and to delete or replace outdated definitions. Every permitted use listed under the zones now has a corresponding definition. Similar permitted uses have been grouped under a single term. For example, different types of stores and shops permitted in the current zoning bylaw are now simply referred to as retail store. Some definitions have illustrations to assist in understanding their meaning. For example, the definitions include explanations and illustrations of different dwelling types, such as duplex dwellings, as shown on the slide. Section 3, General Provisions in the Zoning Bylaw document, also includes illustrations to help explain certain zoning provisions. For example, the illustration on this slide helps to show where vehicle parking is not permitted in a required yard. The city's current zoning bylaw, number 751/1969, contains 32 zones. The new first draft zoning bylaw contains 26 proposed zones. Some zones have been deleted or consolidated based on recommendations in the zoning strategy report. The Commercial 42 zone has been deleted as it is not currently in use for any property. The Special Uses 99 zone only applies to one property, so it has been deleted and that property now has a site-specific exception in the rural zone. Several commercial and manufacturing zones have been consolidated as they contain similar permitted uses and development standards. 10 other zones have been renamed to simplify the city's zone structure, and 13 other zones have been maintained, including all of the existing residential zones. The city's current zoning bylaw number 751/1969 regulates building heights in a variety of ways, including General Provision 1-10, which limits building heights to 90 feet, which is approximately 27.5 meters or 8 stories, and maximum building height provisions or the use of angular planes in some zones. For clarity, each zone in the first draft zoning bylaw has been updated with maximum building height standards that are appropriate for the types of uses permitted in that zone. The definition of building height has been updated with an illustration that shows how building height is measured, depending on different building roof types. The city's current zoning bylaw number 751/1969 contains general provisions for accessory uses, buildings, and structures, as well as other provisions under each zone. Some existing provisions are inconsistent, such as maximum building height for these structures across different zones. For clarity, the first draft zoning bylaw consolidates all provisions for accessory uses, buildings, and structures under Section 3.1 and organizes key provisions in a table, such as maximum building height, number of accessory buildings permitted on a single lot, and minimum setbacks. A number of key zoning issues were discussed in the second public open house, held online in May 2020, and in the zoning strategy report. This slide discusses how additional residential units have been addressed in the first draft zoning bylaw, informed in part based on previous online survey results. For more information on how other key zoning issues presented in the second online public open house have been addressed in the first draft zoning bylaw, including community gardens, tiny homes, short-term accommodation, and Vincent Massey Drive, please review the display boards on the city's website. For more introductory information on these issues, please review the Public Open House number 2 materials or the Zoning Strategy Report, also available on the city's website. Additional residential units are self-contained residential units with a private kitchen, bathroom facilities, and sleeping areas. They are required to be permitted by municipalities under the Planning Act. A new section has been added under general provisions in the first draft zoning bylaw, with provisions to regulate additional residential units. As required under the Planning Act, these units are permitted in all detached, semi-detached, and row or townhouses, and in a building or structure ancillary to these housing types, where adequate services are available. Ancillary means building or structures that are secondary and complementary to a house, for example, a detached garage. This means that 2 additional residential units other than the main unit are permitted on a lot. All additional residential units require a building permit, and they must comply with the Ontario Building Code, Fire Code, the city's zoning bylaw, and other city bylaws such as the Property Standards bylaw. In addition, each additional residential unit on a lot requires a dedicated parking space. This parking spot may be provided through tandem parking, which means one vehicle parked behind the other.
This slide describes the various opportunities to share your input on the first draft zoning bylaw at this stage of the zoning bylaw review. On the city's website at www.cornwall.ca/zoning review, you will find all previous background studies and public open house materials, display boards that present the first draft zoning bylaw and expand on the information provided in this video presentation, and a link to an online survey where you can share your thoughts on the first draft zoning bylaw. If you have additional questions, comments, or suggestions for the zoning bylaw review, you are encouraged to email the city at planning@cornwall.ca. Your email can be submitted in English or in French. A response will be provided in English or in French as required. This slide outlines the immediate next steps in the zoning bylaw review. This online public open house and online survey will be available from Monday, February 1st, to Sunday, February 14th, 2021 at 11:59 p.m. Once the survey is closed, and as we heard its summary memo will be prepared to document the survey responses and input received, and will be posted on the city's website in late February. The first draft zoning bylaw will be presented to the city's Planning Advisory Committee on February 16, 2021 for information. While this meeting will be open to the public, it is not the formal statutory public meeting under the Planning Act. In the spring, a second draft zoning bylaw and zoning map will then be prepared to include any revisions required based on feedback received and to add the site-specific exceptions to the document. Other aspects of the first draft zoning bylaw may also be revised. The second draft zoning bylaw will be presented at a statutory public open house in the spring, as required under the Planning Act. This slide provides an overview of how you can stay involved in the city's zoning bylaw review process. You can visit the city's website at www.cornwall.ca/zoning review for regular project updates as the project moves forward, and to review engagement materials and reports as they become available. We encourage you to send your written questions and comments to planning@cornwall.ca in English or in French. Future public open houses will be advertised on the project website, on the city's social media accounts, through newspaper notices, and in community bulletins at major city facilities. This final slide provides contact information. The city contact for the zoning bylaw review process is Mary C. Joyce Smith, Division Manager of Planning for the City of Cornwall. Mary can be reached using the project email or by phone at 613-930-2787, extension 2335. Thank you for viewing this video presentation and for your participation and valued input into the city's zoning bylaw review. We look forward to seeing you at future in-person public open house events, depending on the COVID-19 protocols in place. Until then, we wish you and your families all the best during this time. Thank you.